E7S is probably one of my most favorite fights out of this tier, so seeing my results this time made it all the more enjoyable. Getting through the fight's positioning is one of the more intricate parts for everyone this time, so it was funny seeing how people handled it, or didn't. Like before, it's important to note my gear at the time of this video is 1 or 2 pieces away from best in slot, which I will have a link in the description for you for reference. The closer you are to the optimal gear, the more likely you are to hit the DPS metrics required to place well in this fight. Having a muscle memory mastery of the standard rotation of Paladin is also key for this fight, as you will need to be able to prioritize the fight's movements to firmly fit your rotation without error. Click on the top right card for a video that will explain the standard DPS rotation of Paladin. One last note, my placement was based off of our group's composition, and how we set our markers up will play a role in my movements. This may not be a cut and paste for your experience, but you should have some overall similarities, which will help you perform well. Also, please ignore the handsome man talking to his viewers at twitch.tv/SoulSaint in the bottom left corner. I know, shameless plug. Anyways, let's hop into this fight. I started off with Divine Veil due to this tier having a rate-wide AoE damage occurring at the beginning of the fight. I then casted Holy Spirit at the second countdown marker and began the standard fight or flight opener. There's a decent amount of uptime for the fight, so that rotation suited me nicely. Unshadowed Stake targets a tank and tethers them, which my team has their tanks use their invulnerability skills like Home Gang or Hollow Ground to handle the busters. In the event Unshadowed Stake targets you as a paladin, weave Hollow Ground and then keep the rotation going. Since it was on our co-tank, we just made sure that we were out of the beam's line of sight. When the idle cast betwixt worlds, the 2 portals that spawn in the middle column behind you are always consistently the same. Red is on the left inner column and blue is on the right inner column facing the boss. Observe the light course positioning because they will dictate how the next couple of mechanics are going to be managed. In this attempt, we got red first. The next set of light courses have the rest of the map filled with portals. The right side portals will always be where the lights come from, and the colors of the portals are also static, meaning they don't change. So the first row will always be red, the second row will always be blue. The important thing to note here is that 1, the left side portals can swap, meaning you will have to adjust based on the order that the cleaves will come out. Additionally, I made sure to stay within melee's range to ensure uptime during this part. The first order of puddles stayed the same, meaning we positioned on the blue row and moved after the red row with cleave resolved. After the blue portal cleave resolved, we moved back. The second order of portals on the left showed that the first cleave was going into a blue portal, so that means that the order will swap on the last set of cleaves. So after red's first cleave, we moved forward and then just stayed there. Last portals was blue and then red, so we moved after the blue resolved and then stayed until the light's final course completed. Idol of Darkness casts betwixt worlds, which spawns 2 lines of terrain light blocks which you don't want to stand in but be in between, and then it follows up with the shockwave. This shockwave will push you either into the right or left, and I want you to be observant of your rotation because although it hasn't happened to me, it is potentially possible for the push to affect your skills from activating. I've had cases where my circle of scorn is happening just before the push or as it's pushing me to the wall, but it hasn't stopped me from continuing my rotation, so just be aware. Away with Thee is the next mechanic where placement becomes important and also really critical down to 1 extra GCD gained or lost. You will get a debuff that will show you where your teleport position is going to be based on where you're facing. In my group, my goal as a tank was to get teleported to the middle left side of the arena with a partnered healer. Since my debuff had a backwards teleport, I positioned my camera facing away from my designated position so that when the teleport comes through, all I have to do is move forward and the teleport will take me backwards. This is my way of doing this using a controller, and I know that with keyboard and mouse, strafing is possible, so just at the end of the day, make sure you end up where you need to be. Now, before the teleport locks you in animation, if your rotation is lined up right, you should be using atonements during this part. With all things taken into account, like ping and so on and so forth, you should be able to conclude 3 atonements followed by positioning yourself correctly. I try to ensure that once the teleport resolves, I'm still within melee range to immediately continue my GCD rotation. Afterwards, it's another AoE damage, then Unshadowed Stake on a take, which this time so happened to be me. I Hollow Ground and kept the rotation going. Now this is a good time to note that if you get hit with the first one and you get hit with the second time, just make sure you pop a cooldown like Rampart or Sentinel along with Sheltron and Reprisal and get hit by the first one. Inform your co-tank of the fact that you need help with the second hit and have him position himself between you and the boss so that the damage can be shared at the end, resulting in your survival. This shouldn't hurt your rotation, so just keep it up. After this, there's a bit of mechanical downtime, so continue the rotation, but note that we are all stacked as a group in preparation for False Moonlight. This is to ensure all of our puddles that spawn are consolidated to one area, leaving more room for us to navigate. We then line up in 2 groups of 4 on the inner columns of our left and right side. We do in the order tanks, melee, ranged, and then healer. This allows us to maintain uptime on the boss while the courses are going through the map. In order for the dark courses on the outer columns will resolve first, Your Silver Scourge AoE puddle will drop exactly afterwards, and then finally the middle dark courses. I move to the outer side of the arena and reapply the Goring Blade dot on the boss at this point. Just a reference for where you should be at roughly in the rotation if everything is going well. The boss applies another away with theme mechanic, which is the same as before for teleports, but just note where your positioning is going to be and ensure it resolves with you going to the middle safe area of the arena. The tanks will get a marker that will not be shared, while the DPS and healers will have one to share, thus our lineup order. I try to position myself so that I am behind the co-tank so that we don't hit each other while he is on the edge of the top middle section. By the time the teleport activates, I'm performing atonements. I was able to hit one atonement with the teleport moving me as my GCD was on cooldown, meaning that I minimized the amount of uptime loss as close as I could. The boss will become untargetable as soon as my fight or flight window is close, and that's where I prep up to the point of applying Goring, but I don't pop fight or flight. Instead, I wait until the ads spawn for the next phase. From here, in the next phases, variation to the rotation will become apparent and things get really interesting. I turn on tank stance and I go to my designated ad spawn spot, which is on the left side. As soon as the ads are about to become targetable, I pop fight or flight and apply Goring Blade. I believe you can apply 2 to 3 GCDs before the idolatry you're fighting will move with you, so get those GCDs in and move slightly back away from the blasphemy. The reason for this is because depending on the direction the blasphemy goes in, which is either clockwise or counterclockwise, you will grant yourself plenty of time to adjust by giving yourself that early distance. The goal here is to keep uptime while guiding the ad away from the blasphemy and the other idolatry. The blasphemy stops at each corner it hits, so I try to time my positioning so I stop roughly at a corner spot. We try to bait the overwhelming force line cleaves in one spot, then stack on the spot that is going in the direction of the overall movement. Since I'm at A, we beat AoE lines to the right of A and then stacked on the left side closer to A. By this point, I'm entering my Requiescat window, and I'm noting this only because Idolatry's next mechanic called Advent Light. My role is to ensure that this gets interrupted. Now the mechanic has a decent cast time, so that can be delayed. If your GCD is up, you can prioritize Holy Spirit and then interject for the silence. Don't forget to silence, but you have time is all I'm saying. Now after the second corner's line cleaves conclude, I stop halfway due to the next teleport mechanic of Away with Thee. This is combined with the stack mechanic, so we stop here to ensure that our teleports resolve as we continue in the right pattern, this case being counterclockwise. The ads will cast Strength in Numbers, which can be one of 2 variations. Visually, you will see one of the Idolatry's performer circle that is either vertical or horizontal. You will need to move away from the horizontal ad, and to keep busy, you can dash to the vertical ad while dodging the line AoEs and getting a GCD or 2 in, and then bounce to your original ad. In this video, my ad was the vertical one, so I just stayed on it. Ad def timings will vary based on your group's performance, but I ultimately set up so that I can minimize my downtime by moving to the last ad before Blasphemy, setting up my rec combo, and then targeting the Blasphemy with Holy Spirits while I moved closer to him. If the Blasphemy is getting killed too quickly for your full rec combo, feel free to drop a Holy Spirit to ensure you're ending on a Confiteor. If the ad's taking longer to kill, end on atonements, as the ad shouldn't survive long enough to justify applying a Goring Blade dot on it. There's a bit of downtime here, so pop your Passage of Arms and get ready for the reopener. You will see that your pot is up, so just like the beginning of the fight, pop it when your Riot Blade finishes before you hit Royal and keep the rotation going. The next mechanic is going to be Colored Lights Course, which you're going to have the opposite color for. I position myself a bit closer north and shift to the right since I have a dark debuff and need to get tethered to the light one. The more preemptive you can position, the better. You can stay on top of the boss's hitbox line in one column and have the other light colored marker teammates stand behind you to share the damage. The next set of light courses are interesting because you need to get tethered to the opposite colored smoke thingamajig. I don't know what you want to call it, but let's be real, neither do you. How our team handles it is like this. The tanks will get either the north or east tether, and we all position our tethers to resolve on the right side of our chosen blocks facing the center of the arena. Around this time, you are applied with a waymark debuff, and you should also be in your rec combo. The amount of seconds are limited, so before you get animation locked, I dropped 1 Holy Spirit to hit Confiteor before the waymark mechanic finishes counting down. Don't forget to weave Spirits Within and Circle of Scorn during this period as well. From there, I reset to reapply Goring Blade into Royal Authority and Atonements. Like before, we get tethered to our opposite color light horses and stack with the teammates with the same color on the edge. Stay close to the boss's hitbox and keep uptime. The next mechanic is the hardest part in my opinion of the fight, but shouldn't impact your rotation anymore. You will get your colored light or dark debuff, so you're positioned in a column that has the opposite color, but keep note that the red and blue portals are on the same as the first phase behind you. Red on the left inner column and blue on the right inner column. This will tell you what color cleaves will come out of what portals. It combines the portal mechanics with color debuffs, so we position ourselves to the right side of the arena for the first 2 rows, get hit by the first set of cleaves, and then move to the center where marker number 2 is to drop off our AoE puddles and reposition for the second set of cleaves. You won't see it, but it was called that the portals on the left swap, so in this case we need to stay on our original positions. These mechanics will still stay the same, so we just stayed. We are hit with a Raid White AoE, followed up with a tank buster that wasn't on me, and my off-tank called that he had his invuln up, so I just continued DPSing. The boss will become untargetable soon, but with the way my rotation is lined up, I'm ending on atonements, which is a positive. The tanks get knocked into the lower corners of the map so that they can stack at the bottom side of the 3 quadrants that will be available for the next mechanic, which is called Words of Fervor in Unjoined Aspect. Because my fight or flight is down, I reapply Goring and go straight into my ret combo while staying close to the boss to ensure I keep auto attack uptime. We handle the orbs, which for the lack of better words are your color debuff mechanics, so run into the orb of the opposite color of your debuff and keep DPSing the boss. The tank will handle the 3 orbs in total, so you will need to either take the first and the last or just the second one depending on your color debuff. Afterwards, we are all stacked at the south end for the 3-fold graces, which are also color coordinated. We also stack at the bottom to allow the group to provide mitigation for each other and to allow the healers to top everyone off easier. 3-fold grace can be RNG in its pattern, but the end result will be either melee uptime or loss. This set was downtime, but with timing you can get back to DPSing fast by dashing back in with Intervene. It's important to note that this is the time frame that I pop my 3rd and final pot of the fight, so that my DPS can end on a higher note with me being in my burst window. The boss then does 2 raid-wide AoEs, which one tank reprisals the first one, while the co-tank reprisals the second one. The group then goes back to the designated spots on their color debuffs, and we continue with the Words of Fervor again. Because the boss is close to its end, I continue using Royal Authority into atonements instead of reapplying Goring Blade. With this fight, at the time of this recording, I ended on a recorded log that was in the 99th percentile while being ranked number 71 worldwide. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay ascendant.